We're going to talk about parasites, physical and emotional ones. We're going to talk about snakes in the apple and upregulation, cancer. We're going to get into a lot of different things here, as I usually do. And I was going to do it a little different today, but as usual, I'm just trying to get to the source code, which is self. And as I was trying to put this together and do a more concise video with pages and going through some linear fashion, I just once again said no. I heard a couple people wanted me to do things a little differently, but I'm really more interested in doing it in the organic way. If I was doing this organically, I would be sitting in a in the forest speaking to people. That would be the most organic variety. But since we have these tools, we're going to talk about it through this tool, through this wavelength, through this channel. And this goes into all my other videos that I've worked on, and I've kind of put them in a little bit of a linear order, because last video we were talking about what channels are, but I'm trying to access the source code information and deliver it through this specific channel. So we kind of destroy the top and bottom layers of what the carrier wave would be. We get outside of that. So anybody that will listen to me through this broadcast will upregulate and remove blockages and barriers. It would be like listening to the radio station that you listen to, which has rock music on, and then all of a sudden you don't realize it, but all of a sudden it's playing classical. And then all of a sudden there's talk radio. And then all of a sudden there's higher consciousness, all coming through that same channel, which you can't get. It's not allowed. It's not okay to do that, because the command stations, the carrier wave on which that is on, it won't allow it. Whether it's inorganic or organic varieties of carrier waves, it doesn't allow for such things to occur. But we're just going to break that all down. And the idea here is that Mother Nature gives you the test and then gives you the lesson. In Mother Nature and in the nature of things and the forces of the four, the air, the fire, the earth, and the water, and then the fifth element, which is the etheric thing, the plasmic nature of things, the consciousness, those are primordial. Those don't care what you think. Once you get beyond thought and you're inside and part of those, then you're at a whole new level. But where we all sit for the most part of what we deal with when we're inside of this body, because when you're outside of body, remember, these things don't have as much of effect on you, and in fact you can control them. But as we sit here, these elementals, the most basic, the four of them, which all come out of the atom, we're not going to go that far yet, but these things don't care what you think. And we're going to talk about what these snakes are, what parasites are, and what feelings are, and what emotions are. See, again, these elements outside, fire doesn't care how you think about it. It cares how you feel. If you were part of the fire, you would be part of the feeling of what fire is. If you were part of water, you'd be about what the feeling of water was. It doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care about your emotions. Mother Nature doesn't care about your emotions. The truth of the mother is, the truth of the father is, the true things that those are. There's no care about your emotions, and your emotions are tied completely to your thoughts about things. I've covered this more in depth in other videos, and I suggest, if you don't understand what I'm saying, to go find that. Do a little hunting on the channel. Because your feeling is what is important. And most people don't have much connection to what their feeling is. Their feeling of something. People talk about the sixth sense or go with your gut. And I am quick to tell people, you don't know what you're doing. I don't know that most people should go with their gut, with their instincts. Instincts will never steer you wrong. Well, I disagree, because most people's instincts are so full of parasites, meaning a pair of sites, another set of sites, another set of what they consider feelings. Like right now, your feeling may be that your body hurts because you ate something wrong, that you might have a pain in your knee. And so that would be part of a feeling. And so this idea that you need to go with your instinct to do something, most people's instincts are so jammed up with emotions, are anchors to the past or magnet to the future. There's no present moment feeling to anything. Now, getting closer to that, collapsing all time and space into what you are. By taking a breath in the nose and out of the mouth, you're taking energy out of the head and putting it into the body. Now, equally, you could take it in the other direction and pull it into the mouth and out of the nose, and now all of a sudden you've put the oxygen and the energy into the higher regions, into the brain, and you could be thinking differently. But let's collect ourselves into our body. Now we can once again examine what the snake is, so you can feel what I'm talking about, so you can understand from a different level, so you can understand the snake, not understand it, because it really gets into even the word understanding and what snakes are and what Kundalini is. So let's get on to this next picture here that I've put together so you can get an idea. See, snakes are your friends. Parasites are your friends until you don't need them. Let's think about this from a very high level of thinking, of comprehension of what it is. You always see the apple that was bitten. This goes into the most basic, the most fundamental story that anybody ever hears. And there's many ways that we can tell this story, but this is an even deeper understanding of what it is, because the apple is the pentagram, is the five-pointed star, which you are. But there's always a snake in there. There's always a worm in there. And see, even in this picture, I think it delivers so much information. Because if there's a worm in your apple, you don't eat that apple, do you? And if that worm is sitting there telling you the ABCs and has that mortar cap on and it's eating of the apple, well, it's the worm that's eating the apple. It's the parasite that's eating the apple. You don't get to eat that apple. You don't taste that. And so when you think of our body in its current state, parasitic state, these worms are your friends because they're keeping you alive. How are they keeping you alive? Well, they're eating all the dead things and the things in your body that you don't need. And they're doing you a favor. Certainly they're helping you. And they're helping you along a path. Now, they'll take you to the path of death eventually if you don't understand what they are. So there's different kind of philosophies on these worms and good bacteria and bad bacteria. But let me remind everyone, the first piece of you, the energetic unit, the initial atomic thing that you are, is an immortal cell unto itself. You are one singular cellular unit, nothing else. But we've got to a place now that we have things that are living with us, which is perfectly fine where we are. But they'll get to a point where these parasites are reminding you that you need them. They kept you alive, that you rely on them. And so it goes into this polar dual thinking, which is a pair of sites. It's your site and then the site of the parasite, the idea, the thoughts of what's living inside and on your body. Which, yes, they, again, during this process of cleansing yourself, when I talk about giving the honey and the quinine, or you put the sugar and the different types of substances that will extract or remove or kill these worms in your body, the point is that if you were really full of shit, if you were full of things that you didn't need, and you started to cleanse yourself and remove all of the worms and all of the parasites, you'd kill yourself. Why? Because your body would be so backed up with toxin And it would be their job would be to remove it. And that's why people need these parasites. So along this path is to clean out, let these worms, let these parasites, let these things that are living inside of you do their job. And then when their job is done, to remove them all. When you're having a party at your house, you have a party and then there's a big mess in there. And then you bring in all of the people to clean. You bring in the garbage men. You bring in the people to spit shine your house. And it's the same exact thing. So, because 8 o'clock tonight, you're about to have a date. You're about to bring over this beautiful woman. But as soon as she gets there, you know what? You don't want any of those people in your house. They come in, they clean up the party. They remove all the junk and the filth. And then your house is immaculate. The dirt is gone and they leave too. These parasites leave your body too. They don't come knocking on the door. There's a reminder they were there, and you're very thankful for their services. But you remove them from your body. But if you leave them in your body, then they start to eat of the apple. They start to eat away at that delicious fruit of what it is to be living. And they give you this knowledge. They give you all these things. They've done so much. But remember, it's getting rid of what these parasites are. They've done a service, and you remove them from the house. You remove them from the temple. What does this have to do with computers even? Let's get into this next level so you can understand it from a different way. And if you've already been so excited of the mind of these ideas, once again, it's a simple breath to pull down the energy from your head into your body so you can feel the ideas. What's next here? There you go. This idea of upregulation and what cancer is and how cellular function works in the body and even how it works in your mind. A lot of ideas of upregulation come out of the use of drugs, the use of expanding and having an outgrowth or a cancerous situation at times. Now, what occurs during cancer is the cellular activity. It increases. It reproduces itself, and it becomes bigger and bigger. Let me even show you this picture here so it makes a little more sense. See, the cancerous cell, it's an overgrowth. Why? Because it hasn't compressed itself. So I'm going to get into this upregulation, and we're going to get into compression as well here, because they're bound together. So in the cancerous cell, it's disorganized. It's not informed. It's not in the formation it needs to be. And that's exactly what occurs in this can of Sur. Now, we can get rid of those cancer cells, or you could compress them into a usable material, or you could remove them from the body just like a parasite. Just like in your computer, if you take an original file and you compress it, what occurs is you've taken that information and you've made it smaller. And in the same way, it happens in your body. It happens in everything. It happens in what a seed is. I'm going to move on to this next picture, and we're going to go back through this again, but this is going to make more sense as you understand what a seed is. And we'll come back to this compression in 1 second. That seed is that tree. That seed, that nut is that giant tree right there. What allows it to express itself? Water and sunlight. Memory, water and light. Mem-ori. So that seed is the containment vessel that has been imploded into that seed, and then it expresses itself as a tree, as a giant tree. So in the same way, what a computer file does is it compresses something down to a seed. Now, there are times that we can look at what occurs on a tree as a cancerous growth on a tree, or even a loss of information that happens during compression to restoring something. And a lot of times, and this can go into what your mind is, even what nature does, as you see certain seeds express themselves, and you see tomatoes or you know, a fruit that doesn't look correct, that is missing information, or has growths on it. Now that's what a cancer is, and that's what what would be called lossy compression. But sometimes during these compressions, you can compress something to the point of you have redundant information in your system. So the next installation of whatever the information was is the same exact thing, but just smaller. It's a more condensed version. So it gets restored without redundant information, meaning there's 100 things going on in your head that mean exactly the same thing, but because you have 50 words that mean the same thing, you think there's 50 different things. But not, by getting rid of that, you can press it down to the one singular essence of what you mean. Now, don't get it confused. You still have access to those 50 different words to express yourself in an artistic way, to be magical, to use words in ways that are very becoming to nature, to express yourself fluidly. It's not saying that we don't have access to all of those things. Just like a painter with an easel and his paintbrush, and he looks down and he sees 7 colors. Now there's your compressed version of reality. But he can take those 7 colors and mix them in any way that he wants. And that is the fully on, there's no loss. That's the full on expression, to be able to combine those 7 basic things. And it even gets farther back into what's the one thing. That one thing becomes the expression of the 7 colors. And there's the theory, there's the practice of the 7 days and the 7 colors and the 7 chakras, to make it the most simple way. Here, use these 7 things and you can create anything. You can't create anything from black and white, because black and white will just give you gray. So remember that. This is why it's not a bipolar reality. It's not a black and white reality. The next base is 7, and in fact 9, because we like to use black and white within the 7 colors, which is to give you shades and brightness. To give someone shade and brightness allows for even more exploration of those 7 colors. But again, this is taking that condensation. It's taking sucking in the recursive energy to pull into what a seed is, to compress, to then again restore all of that information out and implode that information out onto the other side. So what does this have to do with how these parasites work? Here we go. We've connected these couple things here for you. Upregulation. So this, let me talk about this before we get back to these parasites, because again, what's occurring in your brain with upregulation? A lot of people think of it in a way that has to do with drugs, and it's about opening new pathways, neurological pathways. If you combine these two ideas of upregulation and compression, what's occurring is you're just compressing information to the tiniest little source and then multiplying them. So in the same amount of space, you have more data. In the same amount of space, you have more connections. You've upregulated everything within the system. And this is what computers have continually done. In a smaller space, made more and more connections within information. Now, it might not look like that, because to someone, oh, how can something so small contain so much? Well, that's the same thing as the seed. And this is what happens between using the idea of upregulating and an outgrowth, because again, people think of outgrowths as cancerous, which they can be. And that outgrowth is the same thing as what we see as parasites. So we see these parasites that start to grow, and that's the cancerous outgrowth. That's the secondary site. That's the what would be the negative example of an overgrowth of information that wasn't actually yours, that did you service and did you help, but we must learn to get rid of it, to put it back where it belongs. These parasites live wherever they live. Remember this. These worms want to live inside of your body because you keep feeding the worms. The worms will happily live in the ground. There's much more if the worms knew any better, but they're living in your body because you keep feeding them. If you take those things and put them onto the earth, they go into the ground and they're like, wow, look at this. They have a whole earth of exploration. You have a tiny little body compared to the earth, but these worms think that your body is everything. And then start giving, hey, listen, we need more of that food. We need more of that. Oh, we need more of that salt. We need more of that sugar. We need more of that, whatever that substance is. Oh, yeah. And the scientists have told you, because the scientists are speaking through the worms themselves. So whenever they start feeding you things and telling you things on the TV, they're talking through the information that's provided by the bacteria and the worm that's living upon them. But what no one really understands, except for a few, is that the whole thing works by getting those worms out of the people's systems and putting them into the ground, then everybody lives harmoniously and, in fact, in a better way. Now these worms can go work underground where they should be, on the planet, within Earth, within Mother, and then it'll produce the food that we should be eating. We don't eat the worm in the apple. But the story, as always, goes, you look at these teachers, there's an apple on the desk. We look at the computer that has a bite out of the apple computer. We look at the worm in the apple. What is that? We bite of it, and now all of a sudden the worm is inside of us. So we're feeding the worm inside of us. But truth be told, remove all of the food from your body, remove all of the things from your body, remove the dirt from your house, and you don't need to make a phone call to have someone come and clean it up. And all of these things, they walk into the house, they look around, well, there's nothing to clean, there's nothing to eat, there's nothing to steal, there's nothing to rob, there's nothing to participate with. And then they go back underground, and then they do all the work to actually make you the entire garden of food. And you don't even need to work for it. And they do the job they wanted to do. And they get to eat everything they wanted. And they produce you the apple without the worm inside of it. And you look at that apple and it's shining and it's bright and there's no bacterial growth, there's no worm in there, and you eat of the apple and everything is fine and dandy. But what happened is we ate of the worm and we continue to feed the worm. So what is the process? Does this make sense? Is this a great condensation, a collapsing, a compression of the knowledge, a compression into the seed of all of this thing, everything that I've been explaining to you? Again, it comes back to memory, water and light. So what do you need? What are you? What is your original form? What is consciousness? If there's consciousness in a single atom, there's consciousness in you. So that atom does not require anything at all. It doesn't really require, what you are doesn't require oxygen. It doesn't require water. It doesn't require sunshine. It requires nothing because you are that. But that's too much for most people. But we can really get to the idea of what an atom is, and the immortal cell in your body. And as it expresses itself, it needs water and light, just like that seed, mem-ori, water and light, and it becomes that tree, which then produces all of that delicious fruit. It produces the shade. It produces everything that was in that tiny little seed. When we use this allegory through all the stories, we can use this allegory through what the computers are. We can tell the story in so many different ways. But again, the idea is to get rid of the parasites, to get rid of the ideas, and again, it's multifaceted. It's the physical body telling the mental body, hijacking it and stopping it from speaking to the spiritual and the soul, because it's saying, no, you will die. But if you flip it around and the soul speaks through the spirit into the mind and then the physicality, you can see by flipping it around what the actual answer is, what the balance is, what the truth is, that all of these things can exist. And these parasites and snakes go back exactly to where they'd like to be, and we leave them there. And they do the work for us, and we work for them. And it's a perfect situation. But as soon as we consume of that, we're feeding that inside of our bodies, which we shouldn't be. So this was a lot of fun for you guys and very informative. Hit that subscribe button if you want that more information. Anybody new here that got to this point, if you're not a little, if your brain's still working, go back. I have about 200 other videos. Feel free to dig in there, and all your questions should be answered. Cheers, everybody.
还是全体呢？我一个人就够你受了。到了。Get him! Quiet!